Bonjour à tous et bienvenue pour ce numéro tout à fait spécial qui ne fait pas partie de la série des chroniques de Youssef. C'est un numéro à part pour deux raisons particulières. D'abord parce que j'ai un invité exceptionnel aujourd'hui que je vais vous présenter dans quelques minutes, dans une minute. Et d'autre part parce que cet entretien se fera en anglais, puisque mon invité est anglophone, il est indien, il vit en Inde, il est anglophone, il ne parle pas français, donc on va faire l'entretien en anglais. Pour ceux qui ne sont pas anglophones, vous trouverez dans les réglages de la vidéo YouTube très facilement l'option pour traduire en français l'entretien en direct par intelligence artificielle si tout se passe bien. Okay, so we will begin in English. Dear S. Narendran, happy to have you on my podcast. This is the first time. Hello, welcome.
Thank you very much, Youssef. Such a pleasure. I'm a great admirer of your profile and your views, and
Okay.
good to be talking to you.
Okay, great. So I will introduce you to my audience, to the public, and then you will precise your profile. So, as Narendran, you are an engineer and you live in India, as I said. You are the founder of an NGO called Sapience, which is based in Oslo, Norway. Sapience collaborates with governments and international institutions. Your work involves developing a civilization vision of multipolarity based on civilization states. It can be said that you position yourself in opposition to the liberal, progressive, and unipolar hegemonism. So, could you introduce yourself and Sapiens and tell us more about your concrete activities and what does your work consist of and with whom do you collaborate?
Thanks for the nice introduction, Youssef. As you mentioned, I'm a public policy specialist. I'm a data scientist by profession and engineer by qualification. Um, I, I've done years and years of taking data to solve problems for businesses and in a very commercial way. And then I moved on to using data to solve issues and problems with the government. That got me very interested in public policy. And I had traveled extensively to many parts of the world, interacted with politicians and influential people across various countries, across many continents. That gave me the understanding and orientation of important opportunity in creating a multipolarity framework as we embrace the new world, which we are embracing in a fast forward way. Like you said, multipolarity is worldview is not against a unipolarity of the liberal West unipolar order. It is an alternative theory. And the world has been uh, successfully so post Bretton Woods at the end of World War II. There was a global system established, the global political system, the global economic system, and the world institutions were based on largely the Western and the liberal Western view. It has done well. It has taken the global economic market from nearly $1 trillion at the end of World War II to today, maybe we are about 105, $106 trillion. It's like the building material used to build the basement or the ground floor of a building. You can't use the same material to build multiple stories above. You need new thinking, you need new understanding. So multipolarity, in my view, is an important another alternative theory which the world needs to look at, be it public policy, be it economics, be it social structures and culture of different geographies and so on. It is an alternative model and alternative thinking. So you need to develop new models when we look at the social structures of today. That is the idea of multipolarity. It is not political system, it's multi-geopolitical polarity. It is multicultural polarity. It is multi-civilizational polarity. It includes all of this. I think the world has changed. A modern world today is a composite mixture of people from different races, different belief system, different linguistic origins, to different geographies coming together in order to build a uniform, cohesive society. Very often, I have seen in the political system, there is very little value given to cultural aspects of human endeavor. I truly believe culture, we all bring in our respective cultures, which has many things which are good. We are a product of our culture and we are a product of our civilization. Without being supremacist, if we come together with mutual respect and mutual understanding, we can build a modern society. This is the gist of what it is. Just the last line before we discuss this further, it is not against, it is an alternative ideology to the left liberal world order.
Okay, so we will talk about India, the position of India in this multipolarity, and in particular in this moment of history. And we will talk also about the conflict in the West Asia. You in India, you talk about West Asia, and in the West we talk about Middle East. So before we talk about India and India's position on multipolarity, BRICS, and the current conflict, I would like you to tell us about your role, you and Sapience, and your influence in India for us to know who you are and what is your influence.
There are two questions you asked. The way we look at the issues currently going on in West Asia. And second is the Sapience role in India and also looking at in this region. So I answer the Sapience role and what we are trying to do first. And then ideologically, this is one of our important projects as far as India's position and the West Asian issues which we are facing. So first of all, we work with politicians, innovators, scientists, technologists, bankers, business people, social elites, including social media influencers. It's essentially the essence of all elements of the modern society coming together in order to understand and identify who we are and what we are in a modern world today. So it's a union of very influential people from different walks of life. So everybody gets to participate and discuss about a public policy. To give you an example, if you're looking at an economic policy, very often in today's world, you have a few elected members or politicians who are not necessarily trained economists. And they take inputs and recommendations from industry association and some financial experts. But bulk of the debate happens between the two sides of the political spectrum. Bulk of the discussion takes place between the ruling government and the opposition government. And the collective knowledge of the reality of economic policy is very limited. Our idea is to bring in the people's role and participate in the decision-making process. If you look at a scientific discussion or the advancement in innovation, uh, there are again ministers and policymakers who are not really trained uh, in science and technology. And what is their understanding of what is the future of innovation and the high-tech industry is going to go? They do some consulting and they ask somebody to write some paper and thesis, and that's not enough. I think they should be actively participating. And the role of younger generation, I've seen very often the Gen Z and the younger people who are now getting into the workforce, they have absolutely no say in any of the public policy. And what about seniors and elders? You have so many of them who are writers, thinkers, and philosophers. They're all operating in different silos, have no role in public policy. Our idea is to bring each community collectively together in order to discuss and worry about uh, each of their aspects which determines their future. That's the role which we play in India. We bring in all the elements and aspects of the society to be part of this discussion. That is one. Second, coming to West Asia or the Middle East, as you call it, it's just a name. I think we are all civilizational neighbors. I think we share a remarkable common history. Our uh, forensic genetics says there is hardly any difference between a DNA of an Indian to a West Asian or a Uzbekistan or a Iranian or um, Tajikistan and Turkmenistan and many of these countries. So if you go back in history, maybe 5,000 years, 3,000 years, 2,000 years, it's probably could have been a single unified geography. We have a common genetic history, we have common linguistic history, and we also have many aspects of our family life structure and many things which are common. If you start the discussion at that point, politics, people realize that we are far beyond the politics of today, which is very unidimensional, and we are able to connect with them. So we work with many countries in West Asia. In fact, we are in very good touch with the civil society in Iran as we speak today. We are also talking to people in Afghanistan, and we're also taking to elements of in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So when you start the discussion by saying we are joined by history and culture, then it creates a platform to be able to discuss this. And when the discussion goes to religion and politics, you always end up, beating up each other. So once the discussion starts with a more nourishing, inclusive, civilizational and cultural aspects of it, then we are able to have a dialogue and understand the limitations of uh, religion or politics.
Okay, great. So now we will talk about India and the BRICS, the relation with the BRICS and the West. Uh, I will introduce the subject, then I will let you speak as long as you want. So, India is a major economic power. Everybody knows that. The third largest globally in terms of GDP at purchasing power parity. India occupies an important geographical and strategic position, both for Asian and Eurasian powers, as well as for the United States and its allies. India is a founding member of BRICS, but maintains privileged relations with the United States and Israel, and New Delhi's foreign policy is being closely observed by the great powers, by us also, the analysts, in the current historical sequence where they are confronting one another. And this confrontation goes beyond mere geopolitics. We have seen international tensions intensify with fractures of a civilizational nature, an opposition of values between countries attached to their traditions, can say 75% of humanity, and a West which considers that men and peoples are not equal, that the law, natural law, and international law can be dispensed with, and that identity, biological reality, culture, and history can be ignored, rejected, destroyed. Remember when President Macron said there is no such as French culture. He denied the existence of the French culture. So, where does India stand in this fractured world? Because you said that there is not a confrontation from your point of view between multipolarity and unipolarity, progressivism, etc. But there is a fracture, and where is India in this fractured world?
India is still largely a work in progress, an important experiment um, to be trying to be a true sovereign nation. So though I work very closely and observe being part of the India's um, reinventing itself to be a true sovereign nation, it is still work in progress. But it's important for the sake of larger good for the entire world, for countries like India to succeed. First of all, you can have interdependencies, but you cannot allow those interdependency to be leveraged and influenced and coerced to be part of a group, and then you end up fighting the battle on for somebody else's behalf, be it an economic war or be it political war. Reacting to what the French president said, French does not have a culture, he's just reflecting his friends across the Atlantic's view. It's the American view. It's ridiculous to see, even if a university student anywhere in the world would tell you what is French culture. So French is one of the countries with enormous civilizational, cultural aspect of it. What the French president reflecting is just what his American friends across the Atlantic wants to say. So I believe India is slowly trying to be a true sovereign nation. It is very difficult. From the outside, it looks easy that we don't take a position, but the amount of pressure we face from all sides to be into their team. I think I've also looked at Canada for a very long time, created an economy for the last 30 to 40 years as a dependent economy on selling to America. More than 70% of their trade comes from exporting to the United States. And thanks to the new American president, he's broken that trust and completely. And Canada is now seriously thinking about creating a true sovereign nation. So China is another good example. We all know China as a kind of dictatorial state with the political establishment there. But China is also a very large, vibrant civil society with 1.5 billion people. So we have also seen in the last 20 to 30 years, China is also trying to be a true sovereign nation. So these are important experiments. And even Russia, I think Russia was, in the last 5 years, Russia's economy was so dependent on exporting oil to Europe and their energy to Europe. Suddenly, we are seeing Russia to be trying to create itself into a position of being a true sovereign nation. So in politics, I think the experiment of many countries trying to be true sovereign nation. So that means you have friends, you have allies, you have partners and you create a kind of interdependence to each other, but you don't push their ideological agenda. You don't go to war because it helps another country. So I think politics is changing dramatically, though smaller countries, uh, for lack of their self-confidence and complete dependence on foreign aid and foreign investment, even within them, there is a discussion in the public discourse. I know for sure my southeastern neighbors, Philippines, to be able to be truly independent. You could have trade, and we are all interconnected by trade and commerce, but that does not make you a sovereign nation. You can't expect uh, Philippines to go to war with China because our big brother across the Atlantic doesn't like it. That situation is changing very fast. I see a very fast changing order. It is changing diplomacy. It is changing geopolitical landscape far better than what we see. Europe is in a classical case. Europe was so dependent on NATO and the armament and the defense industry be based dependent on America, and to a large extent their exports of goods and services and also capital flow. Thanks to the new American president, that landscape is also changing very fast. I think you will see a completely different Europe in the next few years to come. So it is expected to happen and bound to happen. This kind of teaming up and the kind of creating gangs and creating fights and conflicts with each other is a changing paradigm. Indian resurgence has come at the right time. Such a large nation with a very thriving economy of $4 trillion, it's very difficult to jerk you around because the world depends on Indian consumption to a large extent. The world depends on Indian exports of high-tech manpower and resources. And India is also dependent on American capital coming in. And India is dependent on energy from the Middle East. You can have dependencies, but that can't be leveraged and weaponized in order to fight somebody else's war. It's a changing shift. The way India is behaving today, in 5 years, I see all of the European nations would exactly go the same way. It's a new world, and it's truly a multipolar world is emerging.
Okay, thank you. So now let's talk about current geopolitical events and the Indian position. It is important for us to understand your position and the position of the Indian state. India has a flexible geopolitical doctrine, tell me if I'm wrong, that allows it to have fruitful relations with as many countries as possible. But it seems that the Indian doctrine of multi-alignment is difficult to maintain in the current context, insofar as this doctrine is not one of neutrality, but of engagement with every state, including those in direct conflict with members of BRICS. For example, Iran, which is member of BRICS and also been attacked by the United States and Israel, who are important partners of India. So how does India's doctrine of multi-alignment articulate with the context of tensions and war between members of BRICS and India's other partners, namely the United States and Israel?
Yes. See, first of all, the India's position, if you see, when in the previous question I answered that most of the European countries and other nations will start behaving like this in a few years from now. Let's look at what happened to the Indian political system in the last few years. I think India was seen as very similar to, I recall what President Macron said. Oh, India, there is no culture. There is nothing. We're just, group of people happen to be in this part of the geography. So I think India went back to spend a lot of intellectual, political capital to discover whom we are, what is our identity. I think that people call it a kind of patriotic movement. People call it nationalistic movement in this part of the world. I know it's not considered a good word in Europe, but understanding what does it mean to be Indian, and uh, that became an important aspect of public discourse. Then we know it's our identity. We understand the Indian identities dates back to thousands and thousands of years. So once the self-awareness of whom we are happens, then it becomes a lot more clear to be able to realign your political articulation. So that's the root of it. So just to answer back the previous question, the day French realizes what is the French identity, a multicultural, multipolar, modern identity. I'm not saying you just go back and take pages out of past and then say that is today. The day France identifies its cultural and civilizational identity today, and with the kind of uh, add the respect and reverence with all the multiple different immigrants which comes into this. You as a great example, Youssef, you love French culture and French civilizational aspect of it, though you come from a Moroccan origin. That's a great example of the modern French thinking. So the day the French elites and the political leaders starts thinking like you, France will also be able to align itself and with the rest of the world better. So just to prove that example, now coming back to India, uh, India is aware of its civilizational and cultural origins. And in the moment, self-awareness also goes beyond what it is today. Today, it is one of the largest consumer market of 4 trillion of goods and services which needs to be consumed. Uh, and it becomes a very attractive market for every country around the world want to be selling products and services into India. And India has been a large consumption market, one of the fastest growing economic uh, amongst probably the fastest growing country in the world today. And it is dependent on its own consumption. So that brings it a difficult state for anybody to, trouble you. The second aspect of it, uh, America has been not just Trump. I think the issue started much before. If you see the true America, it's not who the president is. If you see in the last 20 years, I take the statistics from 2000 to 2025. In the last 25 years, American industries have become bigger and bigger and bigger at the top. I can give you many examples. The whole defense armament industry in the last 25 years in the United States have grown 6 times, and the number of players in the defense space, if I remember in the year 2000, there used to be something like 95 small and medium to large companies. Today, there are only 12 companies. If you look at the American high-tech industry, I mean, we all know Silicon Valley is a haven for technology, innovation, and startups. Today, if you go to Silicon Valley, everybody is building a startup to be bought over by one of those 5 big companies. Okay, you look at the pharma industry. When I used to travel before the year 2000 in the 1900s into the United States, there used to be a mid-size 50 million, 20 million, 100 million pharma companies all across California, Texas, New York, and many parts of America. Today, you see the pharma industry, you won't even identify them. There are six players, and hundreds of companies have merged, bought over, taken over, bought over, and there are six companies. So each of these industries, the tech industry is 10% of GDP, and there are five people who run it. The entire defense armament industry is almost 10% of their GDP, and there are five people who control it. So America has been moving towards a very dangerous monopolistic capitalism. So America is run by, when they call the deep state, it is not some ideological deep state of the security and defense establishment. The deep state are these large, giant corporations. They run America. I think people are slowly beginning to realize, when you look at an American president, probably the next president, you will not see him as a political figure. You will see him as the representative of those large, monolithic, global, giant organization. They are serving their interest largely. I think that's getting exposed, and India is very well aware of it. We are not going to be war with him, nor we are going to do anything which deprives their political or economic interest. But the moment you realize that you are fighting a representative of these large companies, and then you actually become more equipped to handle with them better. So that has been the political change, and that's the new diplomacy which India has taken. And you've seen Canada also. They're much smaller population, much more higher income levels, and much smaller population. You will see Canada completely reinventing itself. And Canada is resource rich. And they just don't have a military and armament industry completely dependent on the United States. But look, who's ever going to attack? And they don't have a border dispute with anybody. So there is no need to be so worried about it. We have seen the new leadership of Canada, very admirable. We just love the way he handled his truly bringing out the true origins and the pride of being Canadian. Look at Russia. I mean, I don't like Russia for putting people to so much of misery in Ukraine and the war, but I still like the way Russia is trying to reinvent in itself. It has gone back to its orthodox origins, and it has given their people their identity as to who they are. So I think American strong arm projects, I'm very carefully choosing what's the right word to do this, but that is changing very fast. I think you see what is happening to Iran war. I mean, you can't go fight a country which is very conscious of its civilizational, cultural origins and treat them like a country which do not have any identity of itself, like a Venezuela or somebody else. America has spent $3 trillion and convinced the world that they're going to bring democracy to Afghanistan. Look at what happened. Zero result. And in spite of all the bad PR, as they call it, public relations, and then say these are unsophisticated, uneducated, uncultured, kill people. Look at what Afghanistan today. They have a government, and exactly what America has been fighting, the Taliban is ruling them. So Iran is also going to be the same thing. So they don't realize that the time is changing very fast. Even the defense industry is completely changed. America, with its $40-50 million sophisticated high-tech warfare on the air, cannot even match to a $20,000 drone. The war has shifted. The playground has shifted. I think it's a sign, early signs of things to come. America, in this way of strong arm being big brother and a bully, I think that aspect of America is coming to an end. We believe it is the end of a unipolar world. It's difficult for the Americans to come to terms with it. All that they thought, defense, military power, economic power, and using that create interdependency, and be the ruler of the world. Both of them in both fronts, all wars they have lost. And economy, sanctions in a few years as we speak probably become irrelevant. People may not even care too much. It's a weak signal of something dramatic shifting of the world politics. That's the reality today. And we as sapiens understand this. We visualize a true multipolar world. You can have interdependency in a very stewardship is the right word for it. You can't leverage them to make them as vassal states. That era is pretty much gone. Look at what NATO is up to. For the first time in the history of the world, an American president is requesting its allies across the Atlantic in Europe, Japan, and Korea to join them in this Iran war. All of them refuse. Not one have said yes. Can you imagine? This is not some small event. People just push it under the carpet and say, oh, Trump is, they look at his character and say he's like this, he takes U-turn. No, 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 no. Forget Trump. Any American president. Can you imagine in a world today in so many wars? I could trace out 165 wars in the last century. All wars which America wanted, whether it is justified or not, good or bad, all their allies send their troops, warplanes, ships, and armaments to fight. For the first time, we are seeing not one ally join them.
It is true. We will continue our discussion about geopolitics and India in this stage of international relations and confrontation. We'll continue about. I would like to hear you about the doctrine of multi-alignment of India in this particular moment. I think it is very important because there is a shift and there is consequences for India. So the doctrine of multi-alignment, Indian multi-alignment, is based on political realism and the defense of India's national interests. But the problem is that Israel, which has a disproportionate influence on the United States of America and United States foreign policy, is an irrational actor pursuing an eschatological project based on the Hebrew Bible and dragging Washington into politically, economically, and geoeconomically catastrophic adventures as we see it now. And the irrational geopolitics directly impacts India's interests, particularly in the Gulf. There are more over debates in India, I saw, very interesting, on this problem posed by the Israeli-American duo. These debates on New Delhi's relationship with the Washington and Tel Aviv take place in Parliament, Indian Parliament, as well as in diplomatic circles and the mainstream media. These debates are really interesting. In a recent interview that I saw, Kanwal Sibal, a diplomat and former Indian ambassador, very smart, very intelligent, and very singular person, was a former Indian ambassador to Russia, France, and Turkey, has a very long experience, stated, I quote Kanwal Sibal, I'm convinced and I'm very strongly of the view that what the Americans and Israel have done is to deeply hurt our interests, Indian interests, in the Gulf. Figures, 9 million of our expatriates there, and about 45% of our energy come from there. About 40% of our remittances come from there. Who can replace this? Can Israel replace this? Can United States replace this? So if this gets destabilized, then all our friendship with United States and Israel, how will they compensate for this tremendous blow to our actual cooperation and the future? Look, we have signed this FTA, free trade agreement, with the UAE. Is the actually nodal point of our long-term cooperation with this region. End of quote.
And I'm convinced, and I'm very strongly of the view, that what the Americans and Israel have done is to deeply hurt our interests in the Gulf. Figures, 9 million our expatriates there.
Yes. 1 crore people almost in the region.
And about 40-45% of our energy comes from here, about 40% of our remittances come from there. Who can replace this? Can Israel replace this? Can United States replace this? So if this gets destabilized, then all our friendship with the United States and Israel, how will they compensate for this tremendous blow to our actual cooperation and the future? Look, we have signed this FTA with the UAE. It's the actually nodal point of our long-term cooperation with this region.
Another Indian diplomat and analyst, K.C. Singh, a former Indian ambassador to Iran and UAE, criticized the timing of the Prime Minister's Modi visit to Israel, which undermined, from his point of view, India's neutrality on the issue. He states, I quote K.C. Singh, "We are seen now as the Israeli corner." End of quote.
So, seeing India's options very quickly, how should India look at it now? Should we be just calling for de-escalation? Do we have the moral ground to do so, given that we've become so close to Israel?
I think PM's visit to Israel was wrongly timed, and it has completely ripped India of its neutrality on the subject. There's nothing that we can do about it now. We are seen as in the Israeli corner. Now, if the regime is not replaced, look, I'd like to just answer that. The reason they're attacking all these countries is because they want to drag them into it. Now, Dubai is a great center, and also Trump's family is involved in it. They've got businesses in all these places. They know that and they are not willing to suffer the damage, the kind of damage the Iranian people are willing to suffer. So they said, let's put them in the firing line. They'll go running to Washington, start calling up Trump's son-in-law and saying, please, please stop it. We are getting it. So they are using these countries to exert pressure. They said, if you carry on this thing, we don't mind. You can keep hitting us. We'll keep responding, but we'll shut down your business. And now Dubai is finished. Even if the war stops, its reputation as a place to go to where, the law and order is good and no taxation. People are running now. And, people will think twice before going there because this can happen again unless you have a change of regime. If you don't have a change of regime in Tehran, Iran has finished the business of Dubai and all these countries.
Do you share the analysis and concerns of these Indian diplomats, dear Narendran?
I think I have great regards for Mr. Sibal and Mr. Singh. It's their opinion, and by condemning, by accepting or supporting, there is very little an opinion can do. Okay, so while I respect their views, they have enormous experience in diplomacy and in their long career and service to the nation. As I said, politics is changing very, very fast. Indian energy crisis is definitely a very, very painful situation which we are facing ahead. India is trying to see multiple options. There is a frantic negotiations which is taking place from all other alternative sources because India's dependent on imported energy is very, very high. So we will have a growth to be tempered. we will have our imports becoming more expensive and also scarce. So we are facing an upset or a big hurdle to our growth story. So the government will soon announce its austerity measures. We have reserves for probably another few weeks, but still the Middle East is probably won't recover for at least a couple of months if the war ends, but we don't know the situation. So we are facing a dire situation on the energy crisis along with everybody else. We want the situation to get back to normalcy, and the situation doesn't look good at all the way it is going. The second aspect of it, yes, many of the Middle Eastern states have a very large percentage. It's 9 million, probably more. It's crossed 11 million of Indians living in different parts of it. That is also unexpected to be crisis, because already we are seeing UAE economy is devastated. The real estate prices have dropped by 30%, and most of the multinational companies which had promised to increase investment and expand their operations in the Middle East are now cutting back and shutting down their offices. So we expect a lot of Indian population will probably return to India, which is not a very good sign, because their income levels and hence their remittance into India is expected to be hit. There is nothing which India could do. We have to make contingencies, and the government is thinking about all aspects to help them and support them through our ambassadors and the respective governments. These are hard realities, just like everybody else in the world is facing. There is nobody who is going to get away and not paying the price for this terrible war. So having said that, our relationship, let's look at a relationship with Israel. Okay. So we believe from the Indian point of view, it's not like we like somebody, we like all of it. Like every other relationship, I love to work with Youssef Hindi. That doesn't mean everything he believes it should be in alignment with me. Then we lose the beauty of this world. The beauty comes from its heterogeneity and different values and different ideas. So Israel, India, we believe it has its rights to exist, and it needs to have its land which needs to be secured and protected. Point number one. On the other aspects of it, we do not like Israel as a country who has been at continuous at war. We understand whatever happened on October 7th was very, very unfortunate, but that does not mean you wage a war on 6 countries at different levels, one after the other. And this war, knowing very well, Israel cannot win. It's a very, very difficult situation. I think it's a lack of leadership on part of the Israel and also many other parts of the Middle East. It's lack of leadership. Everybody knows war can not just break your economy, it breaks also the other person's economy. Both are the losers. It's mindless war, which is absolutely unnecessary. And India has been pushing hard with the Israel leadership to end this war. India does not support Israel's tenacity to be able to wage multiple wars at all the time. That's not good for the world as well as this. But having said that, we truly believe that Israel has a right to existence. For example, there are more than 30 countries in the world today does not recognize Israel's existence. So we stand with Israel for that part of it. We are totally against Israel for this continuous war machine. But if you look at the politics of it, Youssef, it's also the question of the current head of state to be in power. If the war ends, he might not be in power. There is also another aspect of it. You look at the Ukraine war. I personally believe if the Ukraine war ends today, there are 5 people in leaders in Europe who lose their job. So the war continues and the status quo continues, and they are very desperate for a ceasefire. Very few people are talking about end of the war. Nobody wants end of the war because there are 5 important people at the top might lose their job if the Ukraine conflict ends. If the Middle Eastern conflict ends, Netanyahu might lose his job. So can we assume that this is the price the whole of mankind pays for him to be in power? These are beyond political, ideological issues. It's an individual fight to secure his place. It's very unfortunate. It actually lacks leadership. And even the Middle Eastern government, while we have excellent relationship with them, we have joint investment. Indians have a very friendly policies to go invest in any country in the Middle East. We have a great relationship with them. There is also a lot of Middle Eastern leadership and businesses invest in India. While we have that, but we believe that many of the Middle Eastern leadership who have a very thriving economy have turned the other way when it comes to the issue of Palestine and Gaza. All it takes is a collective might of the Middle Eastern leadership to come and find a solution to Gaza. I don't think that it is that complicated, that somebody can't bring everybody together to have a discussion. And every discussion seems to be some silent underground covert operation. I don't understand. They meet in some place of hiding and nobody knows what is happening. It's most important aspect of it. We have heard every country, every citizen in the world knows what is happening in Gaza. I don't think it's that difficult. It's 20 million people with whom we share a shared history. They're also human beings like us. They have a right to lead a life of dignity and safety. And the entire Middle East, with its 2 trillion economy and countries with per capita income of 60,000 people, it's so self-centered, so self-obsessed that the collective Middle Eastern leadership can't find for 20 million people. It's in India, it's probably less than 3 pin codes. We have 2 million people. It's 2 million people, not 20 million. So 2 million people, India will find it in, 3 zip codes in Delhi. It's a shame on collective leadership of not the world, more specifically in the Middle East, that we look the other way, and the amount of money being spent on a global campaign, probably 1/10 of the money, if somebody showed empathy and care for fellow human beings, Gaza will look like a Dubai today. That's the problem. I think they are so obsessed in protecting their jobs, in protecting their position, and the casualty is infinite number of innocent lives. That's how I see Middle Eastern conflict. Now, the last part of it, what is India's role? Unfortunately, India could have played a leadership role. India could actually be in a leadership role in bringing the Iranian, Israel, and Middle East and America to facilitate them to find a solution to this problem. There are deep concerns of the Iranian government, and maybe they're justified from their worldview. Israel also has some deep concerns about Iran arming themselves to the extent. And after October 7th, they say we don't trust. The entire trust is broken. So when the trust is broken, you fix the trust. You don't go and blow up each other. It's very unfortunate. India could have been in a position to be a facilitator or an umpire to facilitate this. But India missed that opportunity, unfortunately. Today, it's very difficult. The war cannot end. People might call it a very frugal ceasefire, but we know what ceasefire has happened. Ceasefires are just temporary breather, a temporary resource before you come back and start killing each other. It's very unfortunate. But unfortunately, India is also not in a position to play umpire. The way things are turning out in West Asia today, it's very unfortunate. I've personally been talking to a lot of Iranians, the civil society leadership, the religious leadership, and a whole bunch of professionals. This morning, I had a long call with a very senior lawyer in Iran, and the situation is very, very difficult and hostile. And beyond whether he likes the current regime or not, that doesn't matter. But he believes that, both countries needs to come and sort this out once and for all. It's madness. It's not going to keep the world at peace. Unnecessarily, it forces others to take sides. I think the modern diplomacy of India is, we are not here to take sides. I told you, we like Israel on a certain aspect of it. We just don't approve many things they do. We don't like them at all for having put this world into this position. While we like Iranians and the Iranian regime on many aspects of it, very unfortunate. They have been under sanctions for no reason for such a long time and deprived of what they want to be. But at the same time, we don't approve of the regime killing its own people. Innocent people were killed just before the war. So that's the true aspect of multipolarity. So, simpler example, I said I respect and love my relationship with Youssef. But if I say everything I believe in, he should agree with it, I mean, we are a world with heterogeneous colors and multiple colors. A garden looks beautiful with all colors of flowers in it. So that's the way we see it.
Yes, what is important here is not to share my point of view. My listeners know my point of view. This is why I do not contradict you. I have a lot of things to respond about Israel, its lobby in America, and as I said, its project is irrational. It's not a modern-like state. It is a state who has a eschatological objective, goal, is to establish a foolish greater Israel from the Nile to Euphrates. This is why there is a war against Iran. The lobby, the pro-Israel lobby in the United States is pushing United States again in the war against Iran since early 1990s.
Yep.
So it's not just Netanyahu. It's profound. It's deep in the Zionist origin and ideology and goal. So what we need, what Middle East need, West Asia need, it is a pressure on Israel. We see. I will give you an example. Trump just said, I mean, yesterday, we are talking with Iranians. We are coming to an agreement. So just hours after he said that, Israel just began to hit civilian structures in Tehran to sabotage this negotiation. This is what happened just last year. So we will concentrate on in India. This is our subject today. So
coming back to that question, it's very unfortunate. We were very furious. We spoke to the foreign minister and we spoke to the government. When on one side we get a ray of hope of America pulling back, Israel went and bombed the gas fields right next to Qatar, knowing very well that Iran is going to respond and Qatar is going to get bombed, and that will shut off and lock the exit gate for America to get in. This is terrible. Just as America is trying to find peace and get out, there is a tendency to, what we call it warmongering. I think that is very true. I agree with you from that point of view. Um, I also understand the enormous, disproportionately high influence on the American politics and which is being worked upon. I think that's the way Israel has always been. I don't stand with Israel on that aspect of its political ideology, but rather than discussing, uh, the situation and say, make likes, dislikes, and wants and don't wants. I look at it very analytically. I think we are working, like I said, we are working with the civil society in Iran. We are also talking to our sphere of influence with Israel to at least to bring some kind of a non-diplomatic closer to this. In fact, a non-governmental closure to this. I think that's very important because it's for the common good of the world, uh, that there is some amount of peace, not just a temporary peace. In fact, my odds are more for favoring Iran. I think Iran needs to have justice. Iran's sanctions have to be removed for a country with as much reserve as Saudi Arabia. Unfortunately, 100 million people have been put under sanctions for 40 years. And is the poorest country. Can I say Iran is the oil-rich poorest country in the world? Very, very unfortunate. And they have been put under sanctions for 40 years. That has to go. And Israel has to mind its own business as far as this particular war is concerned. We are doing our little bit, but the way it is heading, Youssef, it's very unfortunate. There is no winner in this. Everybody is a loser. And for what we are putting this world into, nobody has a clue about how many innocents' lives lost in Iran. There is no news which is coming out. And completely the news has been shut off. And unfortunately, the press releases from the West, especially America and Israel, is all about, oh, Iran is over, almost done. Tomorrow morning, we are declaring a new country. Everybody knows this is absolute bullshit. Very unfortunate, but the world is going to pay a very heavy price for this. And I don't see an end to this. I hope it doesn't slip into much higher gears. I suspect if Israel, more ballistic missiles breach into the Israel defense system, hope not, something dramatic might happen. So anyway, that's the way it is.
So we'll continue about India and the global geopolitical reconfiguration, and we will begin with the Persian monarchies because they have been indirectly attacked by this attack, joint attack from Tel Aviv and Washington, and they warned Donald Trump against that. The leaders of the petro-monarchies are now furious with Israel and the United States, whose bases on their soil make their countries targets in a conflict initiated by Tel Aviv and Washington. And Washington is supposed to be its protector. And Saudi Arabia and Qatar put pressure on Trump to refuse to engage in this Israeli war. Riyadh and Doha warned him, as I said, as early as January about the catastrophic consequences of this war, because Iran said many times since for years that if Iran is attacked, they will attack the American army bases on the Gulf. Ultimately, the presence of the United States in the Persian Gulf is compromised. Besides Iran, the major beneficiaries will be Russia and China, because behind this war against Iran, there is a grand strategical war of the Anglo-American against Russia and Asia for the control of the heartland and the big continent, the Euro Asian continent. Do you think this will have an impact on the Indian position? And what is your view about this great war behind the little war against Iran?
Indian position is very precarious, as I mentioned. We are in troubled times. The moment our energy import bill goes up or we get scarcity of energy, that's going to be a huge amount of internal disturbance and enormous difficulty to businesses and consumers. So having said that, it's a lesson learned by much of the Arabic nations. You said petrol monarchies. So the Arab countries have learned a very tough lessons. They thought Americans would be there to back them up and fight on their behalf. I think it's a bitter lesson learned. It's time for each of those Arab nations to reach out to both Iran and Israel to bring them to a discussion table. And it's a difficult, bitter pill to swallow right now in order to save the sovereignty of a nation in the future. I keep telling the Arab nations that America has not done you a favor. It's the petrodollar economy which has favored the American establishment in order to fund their wars in many parts of the world. It is the Arab petrodollar which is creating wars all around the world. It was convenient till the time these nations were fast growing in the past 30 years. But now it's completely outdated. I don't see any reason. If American bases are not a guarantee to peace and they could still be attacked, I think it's absolutely a very bitter lesson learned. And the Arab nations, I'm sure they're aware of this. They will find their way. It's easier to go find peace with Iran and make a compromise and collectively bring Israel to the negotiation table than trying to find an easy way out of an American base means your sovereignty is guaranteed. That has been proven to be absolutely ineffective. I'm happy that the world is becoming more real. Like I said, Youssef, diplomacy of the world is not about using flashy words and using sophisticated narrative to be able to do this. I think diplomacy is about providing inclusive and modern leadership. I think the world lacks leadership. I'm not specifically saying anybody for that matter. I think what the world lacks is true leadership. I think till that time happens, this war is going to continue. India is very deeply concerned. We have no way out. This is not something which we anticipated or ever planned for. We've been pushing our Prime Minister to be able to play umpire, and he should be actually going to those nations and bringing them together. India is an enemy of nobody literally today. And it also means you are not friend with anybody. That's what it also means. That's the other side of the coin. But today's times, friend, we don't know what it means. America was the best friend of Saudi Arabia. What has happened? Aramco is shut. America was the best friend of Qatar. What happened? Qatar's, all their gas fields are shut. So today, India is in a better position. You are not enemy of anybody. We've been pushing and pushing the Indian diplomacy to actually be able to travel and bring them to a negotiation table. That's the only way out. There can't be a winner in this war. The world is a loser, and everybody is going to pay the price for it.
Okay, now I would like to return to the relationship between India and the Anglo-American powers. In their grand strategy, as I said, to control Eurasia, the Anglo-Americans have always wanted to use India as a tool. But now it is impossible, but because India is a great country and a big economy. In a 1904 text entitled The Geographical Pivot of History, the Briton Sir Alfred John Mackinder explained that Great Britain should use India and other countries like Korea as bridgeheads against Russia and its allies. And this strategic vision is found in the geopolitical permanence of the United States, like in the US National Security Strategy document published in December 2025. It is recommended to use India, Australia, and Japan to contain China. I quote, "We must continue to improve commercial and other relations with India to encourage New Delhi to contribute to Indo-Pacific security, including through continued quadrilateral cooperation with Australia, Japan, and the United States, the Quad. Moreover, we will also work to align the actions of our allies and partners with our joint interest in preventing domination by any single competitor nation." China. The document talking about China. End of quote. However, as I said, India's economic rise makes it difficult to maneuver to instrumentalize New Delhi, as we saw with the Russian hydrocarbons issue just weeks and months ago. In this context, how do you perceive the relationship with the United States, which, for their part, have not renounced their hegemonic and disrespectful vision towards their partners, in particular towards India?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. We don't have a straightforward answer, but of course, we do a lot of geopolitical research which concerns to the future of American and Indian relationship. It is going to get more and more difficult. It's not just about Trump. Thanks to Trump, this came to the surface. Trump is the one who really brought this to the surface. It has been brewing for quite a long time, but we believe that it's going to transform and morph into a much different position coming into the future. India, as you can see, took a stand to continue to have an energy partnership with Russia and continues to do so. And at any cost, India is willing to pay the price of what pressure which comes from outside. But we will continue to have energy, defense, and many other aspects, a relationship with Russia. Having said that, China is, India and China, we really don't have, except for some border and some simpler issues. We have started quite effectively having to mend and understand the position of what China versus India is. I believe some significant progress has happened It is not about a dominance on the continent of Asia. China also realizes that you cannot have hostile India. India and China uh, need not be friends, but they need not be against each other. They'll pay a very tough price if they become enemies. So we realize that. I think I'm confident that India and China may not be great friends soon. It might take a much longer time, but have realized that it's not worth for both our countries and our economy as well as our future defense if we are hostile to each other. So significant progress has been made. Some of our border disputes have been resolving, and recently India opened up on certain sectors Chinese investment into India. So today, Chinese companies can invest in manufacturing and in specific industries, and um, there could be companies which is Chinese owned working in India. So China's also has been extremely considered in exporting some of the uh, pharma formulations in the healthcare sector, and also rare earths, mineral, and other aspects of it. I think we have been having significant progress. Long way to go, but the process of uh, becoming, uh, kind of coexisting partners towards supporting each other's trade and economics has already started. With America, uh, we've always had hot, hot, cold, cold, cold relationship for a long time. It's unfortunate that there was a political agenda to put India under lot of pressure with things which happened in our borders, especially Bangladesh, a very friendly nation. Suddenly there was a regime change and became very hostile to India. Nepal, this has happened from a very friendly nation with Nepal. Today it's gone slightly neutral. I wouldn't say hostile yet. Sri Lanka, there was a regime change, and from a very friendly brotherly relationship to kind of semblance of hostility. These are attempts which America initiated and supported by America, which has proved that it's not worthwhile the price to pay for in antagonizing India. There are also many other internal disturbances which some elements of the American enterprise try to create. We understand that. At the same time, America and India need each other. India is a land of tech innovation. We have one of the finest pool of high-tech talents in an industry which is very critical for America. India has the highest number of artificial intelligence startups. We have the highest number of fundamental research in very key technology and deep tech research. So America needs us from that point of view. So there is also a large capital which comes into India from the United States. So it's a kind of mix. But given the status of where America's geopolitical situation is, I don't expect that to dramatically improve. I expect that to become a little more difficult and hostile over the periods to come. But I don't see it ever breaking. If there is a snap of this relationship, it only means that it will realign itself to the reality of today. So to that extent, we are extremely watchful and conscious about uh, building a communication with business to business. It's not just government to government. We realize it has to be civil society to civil society, business to business, public and private institutions to the corresponding institutions in America. So these are multiple checks to balance that we don't have a snap in the relationship. But Youssef, I personally believe it's not heading towards getting better anytime soon.
Perfect answer for my last question. Perfect answer for the transition to the last question. So, do you think that India should consider adapting its doctrine of multi-alignment in order to draw closer to China in a common effort to stabilize East Asia and the West Asia experience, having shown that any partnership with Israel and the United States is doomed to catastrophe, as we see it now?
Uh, I personally believe, it's my personal belief, that India has an enormous opportunity to significantly make progress and work with the Chinese, both the government and the civil society. I think that will do both countries very good. I personally think that though they have made some progress, I believe there has to be faster progress and faster work needs to be done in order to work very closely with China. It's important to do that. I think we have no conflict of interest. We have no clashes. We are pretty much same people who've been neighbors for, I don't know, China is also a very ancient country. China also has got a 5,000, 6,000 year history. So same as India. So we have no conflicts. We don't have any common interest where we need to, go to war with China. Just China is also realizing that it modeled against the American model of American universalism and expansionism. China's experiments of being an expansionist force has also failed, if you see. We've all seen the debt trap. We've also seen, investment slavery, as they call it, and all their investments has not really done good. So China also realizes that in modern day world, this kind of trying to be a hegemonic power does not hold good. It doesn't win friends. So I think that realization I can see happening within the Chinese political system. I personally believe that China could be a great ally and a partner progressively. With America, like I said, look, America more and more as we speak, it is becoming more and more a large global transnational enterprise which runs a government. It's not the other way around. I think that is a concern for us. We have monopolistic, capitalistic form of government as we so progressively forward. But having said that, America has been a great ally for a very long time. We hope to continue and maintain this, but the same. Though I personally feel it's tough times ahead between India and United States.
Thank you very much, dear Narendran. Do you want to add something before we start?
Thanks a lot, Youssef. I'm a big fan of yours. I
Thank you.
personally seen many of your podcasts. It's very difficult to find somebody with original thinking and somebody who does his narrative based on his own understanding, his own original view. The beauty of why I like your position and your narrative, it's your own. The IP is your own. You're not driven by popular belief and other belief system. I wish more people like you and come to the fray, and I wish all the very best to you. I wish your channel, you should also expand this channel. I would be happy very soon to have you visit India, as I mentioned before. There's a lot of work we need to do, not just between India and France, pretty much all over the world. So welcome, Youssef, to a multipolar world.
Thank you. Namaste. Thank you very much.
Namaste.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.